Everybody, this is Jay Moore, and I am the founder of the group The Ordinary Christian, and I'm here to empower you, encourage you, and hopefully equip you to live a more powerful missional life that brightly shines the light of Christ in your part of this dark world. The Ordinary Christian was started with the sole purpose of being encouragement, empowerment, and equipping of ordinary Christians to live a life that's on mission with Christ, to be able to go out and make disciples in a powerful way. And so today I want to talk with you about a really important topic, a very important subject, because as you are out there intentionally living a life for Christ, intentionally living a life on mission, sharing the good news, sharing the gospel, making disciples, inevitably you are going to come up against this particular and very powerful stumbling block. That's right. It is a stumbling block, and it's intended to trip you up, to keep you from being on track, to slow you down, and possibly, if possible, even halt you completely so that you cannot go out and share Christ any longer. And so let me tell you what it is. The title of this video is Identifying and Handling a Major Stumbling Block to Missional Living. And we get this from a story found in the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verses 23, and it's a story right after Jesus asks his disciples a very important question. The question he asked them is, who do people say that I am? And they came up with a variety of different answers. Some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Jeremiah, and some say you're one of the other prophets. Then Jesus asked them that really important question, but who do you say that I am? And Peter pipes up and he says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And man, Jesus is just really ecstatic that he had that answer. And he says, Peter, flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who's in heaven. And he talks about giving them, how the church is going to be built on on a foundation, on a rock, and the gates of hell won't overprevail it, will not overpower it. But in this story, right after that part, which is, that's the exciting part, then Jesus begins to open up his heart and share with his disciples about the Father's plan for Jesus. Jesus' part on how to fulfill the mission of God. He begins to tell them how he's going to be arrested by the chief priests and the elders and the scribes. He tells them how he's going to be beaten. He tells them how they're going to crucify him and kill him. He tells them that he's going to be buried, but on the third day, he's going to be raised from the dead. He's sharing with his disciples his part in fulfilling the mission of God. Now, inevitably, you're going to come up against people you know, people who care about you, people who love you, and you are going to also begin to share with them what God has laid on your heart. Share with them how God is using you and working with you to, fulfill the mission of Christ. It's just part of who we are. God has us doing something. We're going to share it with people that we think will understand, people that we feel will, have a heart for what we have. But as Jesus is sharing this, Peter pipes up. Peter just a moment ago said, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. But now he begins to rebuke Jesus and tell him that this is never going to happen. It's not going to take place. But listen in verse 23, what Jesus says to him, how he responds to Peter. He says, get behind me, Satan. Now, no, remember, he's talking to Peter. He says, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. Wow, that's a powerful, really powerful. I mean, it's powerful because, one, it reveals that Jesus is admitting and saying, hey, you are becoming a stumbling block to me in fulfilling the mission, the part of the mission I'm supposed to do. You're being a hindrance to me. You're being a stumbling block to me. You're being a roadblock to me. And so here we find Jesus sharing with his disciples. He shares his part of how he's supposed to fulfill the redemptive mission of God, his death, burial, and resurrection. We're going to do that too. But just like Jesus, as he's sharing it, we are going to find that Peter, in this case, Peter was well-meaning, but he was way off base. You see, Peter cared for Jesus. Peter loved Jesus. He didn't want to see any harm come to Jesus. And so when he hears about how he's going to be arrested, how he's going to be beaten, how he's going to be crucified, how he's going to be buried in a tomb, you know, I don't even think he actually heard the last part, being raised from the dead, because his mind was probably so overwhelmed with all of these horrendous things that he's hearing prior to the resurrection that it just probably didn't sink in. He's saying, absolutely not. Pulls Jesus off to the side and he begins to tell him, hey, this is not right. This is wrong. I care about you. This isn't going to happen. And you're going to also, as you're sharing with people, you're going to find people, well-meaning people, people who love you, people who care about you, people who they think have only your best interest at heart, are going to say, hey, this isn't the plan I see for your life. This isn't the direction I see you going. You know, I thought you were going to be a doctor. I thought you were going to be a lawyer. I thought you were going to pursue this, you know, wonderful career and get this wonderful family. And here you are saying you're going to, you know, sacrifice it all, give it all up in order to go make disciples until there's no place left. What's wrong with you? That's never going to happen. And see, we have these well-meaning people who are going to be doing that to us. They're going to be sharing those things. But then Jesus identified what the issue really was. He identified it clearly. He says, you know what? You're a stumbling block to me. Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. He did two things. He identified what the problem was, and that was these well-meaning people were being a stumbling block to him. But he also identified the source of where this was all coming from, which was Satan. Yeah, I don't think he was calling Peter Satan. I think he was saying, you're being used by Satan. I see Satan behind all of this. He's using your well-meaning desires and things, but it's not in order for my benefit. It's in order to keep me from doing that which God has already told me to do. And he identified it. It's a stumbling block to me. You are a stumbling block to me. And when people, listen to me, when people do not have their minds on the things of God, they become a stumbling block. When they have their mind on the things of men, the things of the world, regardless of how well-meaning they are, regardless of how much they care about you, they are not thinking about the things of God. They're thinking about their own thoughts, worldly thoughts. They are a stumbling block. It's a stumbling block. And the stumbling block is intended to trip you up. Satan is using these well-meaning people in order to trip you up. Satan is using these people in order to hopefully maybe even completely halt you, stop you from pursuing the work that God has called you to do in order to help fulfill the mission that he has. That's what was happening with Peter. That's what was taking place. He says, you don't have your thoughts on the things of God, but on the thoughts of men. And you are a stumbling block to me. Your care, your concern, your advice, your counsel is now becoming a stumbling block because it's not based upon the things of God. So how does Jesus deal with it? Well, he deals with it decisively and quickly. He calls it for what it is. It's a roadblock. And he wanted to get rid of it and deal with it quickly so that it wouldn't take root in his life and actually be something that he ponders or considers. See, here's the deal. When you listen to people who are well-meaning, but maybe they don't have their thoughts on the thoughts of God. They don't have their mind on the thoughts of God, only on the thoughts of men. If you ponder on that too much, it can take root in your life and begin to cause doubt, begin to cause confusion in your life. did I make the right decision? We start asking ourselves, am I making the right choice? Am I really, doing this? Is it in the best interest of my family, my wife, and my children? And Satan begins to use those things, that little bit of a root that begins to grow, he begins to use it to stumble you, trip you up. But Jesus dealt with it decisively and quickly. He called it for what it was. He named it for what it was, and he wasn't going to have any part of it. Listen to me. If you're going to get past this stumbling block that is going to try to keep you and hinder you from fulfilling the mission of God, first of all, you need to identify what it is. And that is, there are people out there, well-meaning people out there, who love you, who care for you, but they do not have their mind on the things of God. They have their mind on the things of the world. They're there. Their aunts, their uncles, they may be parents, might even be a spouse. They're there. Best friends. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that their mind is on worldly things and not on the things of God. And so they're trying to counsel you from a worldly perspective instead of a godly perspective. So you need to identify that's what it is, and then deal with it. And I think the way Jesus did that, he made it clear to Peter and said, listen to me, that is not even an option. What you're suggesting is not even an option. And you need to let people know quickly that this isn't something you think. This is something you know. This is a call on your life by God to go make disciples, to go until there's no place left in sharing. And this is going to be your world's pursuit. Let them know that God has made it clear to you that you are an ambassador of Christ to this dark world. And it is your job, it is your responsibility to bring the message of Christ, the message of reconciliation, the gospel message to the people of this dark world, and share the wonderful good news and bring people out of darkness into light and disciple them to go do the same. But you got to deal with it quickly. You got to deal with it decisively. Otherwise, it's going to keep haunting you over and over again. You got to take it by its roots and you got to pull it out. All right. I just want to end with this last thought. If this was a roadblock to the Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God, perfect Jesus, don't you think it's going to be a roadblock for you too? So let's learn from his example. Let's put into practice what he did, and let's keep moving on, making disciples, pursuing the mission of Christ until there's no place left in this world to share. Take care. God bless you. And we'll talk to you next time on The Ordinary Christian.